All right, let's dive right into this explainer because today we are going to completely upend pretty much everything you thought you knew about the most famous beginning in history. For centuries, right, people have opened up the book of Genesis and immediately pictured this sudden massive formation of galaxies, oceans, and dirt popping out of absolute nothingness. But what if we've actually been reading it completely wrong? What if this ancient text isn't describing the physical cosmos out there, but rather the cosmos in here? We're exploring a fascinating linguistic and theological breakdown today that literally shifts the entire perspective.
So the big question we really have to ask ourselves is this. What if we've been trying to read a spiritual map as if it were a science textbook? Because when you look at the deep, mechanical roots of the original Hebrew, the whole narrative of a physical, six-day planetary creation starts to break down. And honestly, something incredibly profound takes its place.
The ultimate takeaway is essentially this. We are looking at a blueprint of human spiritual transformation, not the formation of planets. The source material argues that this text is actually an internal, psychological, and spiritual diagram. It's the story of the inner world of Adam, which simply means mankind, moving from a state of total chaos and ignorance into complete enlightenment.
Here is our roadmap for decoding this ancient text today. We'll go through not universe, but inner self, unlocking original Hebrew secrets, the journey from darkness to light, spiritual metaphors of creation, and we'll wrap up with the seventh-day completion. Section 1. Not universe but inner self, the blueprint of the soul. Let's start our journey by redefining the very ground we stand on. When the text talks about the earth, or aretz in Hebrew, being formless and void, it's actually talking about you and me. It's describing our internal state of chaos before the truth arrives. You know the line, darkness was over the face of the deep? Well, in this reading, the earth isn't some rocky sphere floating out in space. It represents the baseline human soul. It's empty, it's confused, and it's fundamentally ignorant of higher truths.
And there is just this incredible contrast here between illusion and reality. We aren't looking at the making of the globe, we're looking at the remaking of your mind. A literal reading kind of traps us in these physical paradoxes, right? But the spiritual Hebrew reading opens up a systematic transformation. The goal isn't just to make a habitable planet, but to take that chaotic, dark inner condition we all start with and completely infuse it with divine light.
Section 2. Unlocking original Hebrew secrets, hidden meanings in the text. To really grasp this inner cosmos, we've got to strip away modern translations and look at the actual Hebrew mechanics.
For example, it is completely mind-blowing to discover that Elohim, the word we just translate as God, isn't a static name. It signifies an active, plural ministry working to pull our inner self toward the Almighty. According to the linguistic breakdown in our sources, it represents these divine forces or attributes working systematically within us to achieve that ultimate goal of spiritual realization.
So following that logic, creating isn't pulling a rabbit out of a hat from nothingness. The Hebrew word bara is used to describe a completed blueprint of implanting divine attributes into our messy, already existing human nature. The source points out that bara is written in the perfect or completed tense. This means the blueprint for our transformation is already finished in the divine mind. It's just waiting to be activated within us.
Now let's talk about heaven itself. It's actually described as a factory of ideology where we have to learn to recognize true authority from the fake stuff. Shemayim is a dual-form word in Hebrew. It essentially represents two opposing authorities fighting for your mind, your own ego-driven ideologies versus actual divine truth. So heaven, in this context, isn't some literal place up in the clouds, it's the higher consciousness we are actively trying to align our minds with.
Section 3. Journey from darkness to light, the 6 stages of becoming. Now that we understand the vocabulary, let's look at the actual sequence of this inner transformation. These days are absolutely not 24-hour periods. They are sequential states of being. It starts with separating light from dark on day 1 and ends with the complete spiritual human on day 6. Day by day, the inner darkness is chipped away. It's a progressive evolution of consciousness. You simply can't reach day 6 without first doing the grueling inner work of day 1.
When the text tells us to divide light and dark, it means to deeply understand the difference between truth and our own ignorance. Think about it. You can't physically take a knife and slice light away from darkness in the air. That makes no sense. But internally, you absolutely can do that. To divide them is to have a major epiphany, to finally perceive what is true and what is false inside your own mind.
This is what really blows the whole thing wide open. The lights placed in the sky are actually the goals of illumination placed in our minds to conquer our inner night. The literal sun and moon were supposedly created on the fourth day, which, let's be honest, makes zero scientific sense if light was already created on the first day. But spiritually, it makes perfect sense. These great lights are internal epiphanies that finally stabilize our understanding of our inner daytime and our inner nighttime.
Section 4. Spiritual Metaphors of Creation, Cracking the Code. Okay, so if the sun and moon are internal, what about the plants and the animals?
Consider this your ultimate decoder ring. It shows how physical things like water and birds actually represent human perception and forces that try to obscure the truth. Water represents our swirling human ideologies. Birds represent distractions, those false thoughts that fly over the firmament to block the light of truth. The beasts, those represent our base animalistic survival instincts. And the firmament itself, the sky, acts as an internal mirror, revealing unknown realities to our developing consciousness. Even male and female aren't about gender here. They are internal mechanisms of our soul. The root for male, zakar, relates to remembering or imprinting, the active giving of the truth. The root for female, nekaba, relates to piercing or recording, the receiving of it. Together, they represent the human soul fully internalizing divine truth. One part gives and remembers the law, and the other part passively and perfectly records it within the self.
And this entirely reframes what dominion means. It's not about ruling over a bunch of pets, right? It's about triumphing over the chaotic, instinctual beast within yourself. To rule the fish, the birds, and the creeping things is to finally gain control over your own anxieties, your false ideologies, and your base desires. You literally become the master of your own inner cosmos.
Section 5. The seventh-day completion, the destination of the soul. Finally, we reach the ultimate goal of this entire spiritual blueprint.
Notice how the seventh day doesn't say there was evening and morning. That's because once you reach this state, the darkness of ignorance is completely gone forever. A day or yom is a state of spiritual being. In days 1 through 6, there's always an evening, a time of ignorance, followed by a morning of realization. But on the seventh day, the cycle of struggling with the dark is officially over.
Resting on the seventh day doesn't mean taking a nap. It means you have become a completed spiritual being, ready to do the active, creative work of spreading truth. The source material notes that rest here implies that God's work on you is finished. You are now the completed image. Your internal chaos is gone, and you step into the world not as a messy work in progress, but as an active messenger, radiating that internal light outward. So, I want to leave you with this to ponder. If this entire ancient text is actually a map of your soul's journey out of the dark, where exactly are you on that map right now? Are you still stuck in the formless chaos? Are you just beginning to divide the light from the dark? Or are you gaining dominion over your inner beasts on your way to the ultimate seventh day? It completely changes how you look at the text, doesn't it? But more importantly, it changes how you look at yourself.